Hello again, COVID Cooking Pals. We're making soup today to have for the week. So we're going to make a chickpea and chorizo soup. We make ours with leeks, and we finish it with spinach. So I've got all the ingredients here, and I'll talk my way through. For chorizo, this was about 8 ounces. I used half the last time, so I'm going to call this about 4 ounces. Just want to slice this thin enough so that when we eat it in the soup, it's about the right size. You can certainly quarter this if you want. We got to get this started. Okay, so say that's about 4 ounces, and we're going to start off by just cooking this out. We want to render out some of the fat, soften it up. And meanwhile, we'll get to work on our vegetables. We've got 4 cloves of garlic. I'm going to prepare them first. Because pretty much the last thing I want to do is touch these leeks, which are, as you probably know, tend to be filled with sand. I think since it's the middle of winter here in California, these are probably from Mexico. And I don't know if they grow in the same sand or not, but here they grow in like a black-ish volcanic sand. It's super fine, it just gets everywhere. But, you know, in the end of the day, it's easy enough to wash it all out. You just want to make sure you get it so you don't end up putting it in your soup. Okay, that's good enough. We're gonna cook this down, so I don't really care how well chopped my garlic is. I guess I can chop it a little bit more than that, so you're not eating spoonfuls of garlic. All right, so now we have to try to clean these leeks. We want to slice them off. So I'm just going to do that next to the sink. It's really too much trouble otherwise. I'm going to cut those down the middle and just try to rinse all the way through. This is where the sand tends to get down and collect. Once I think that is well rinsed of sand, there we go. That's the kind of brownish sand I guess these were grown in. All right, that's rinsed off. I'm gonna give this a quick rinse just because I can feel there's a little bit of grit on the cutting board. That's the challenge with your leeks. Okay, so those are starting to sweat out some oil slowly. We're not trying to fry them or anything, we're just trying to get some of the oil out. Okay, now we want to cut our leeks in, they're in halves, so we want to have sort of, you know, bite-sized rings. Not really shooting for anything fancy. These will, I mean, we're going to cook these until they're quite soft, but that's kind of the size that's going to end up on your spoon anyway. I'm taking away the dark parts because they tend to be just a little too fibrous. Leeks, when raw, leeks really do have a strong flavor, but you can cook it out and they become mild and quite nice, which is why they're such a favorite in soups, right? I mean, they're sort of like the perfect mix of having a real depth of flavor once you cook out the sort of the sharp flavor you get when they're just absolutely raw, and that some people, you know, some people just frankly dislike, and that's fine. But we're gonna cook them to the point where they're not sharp anymore. Okay, so I used about 4 ounces of this. This is 3 small leeks. There's my 4 cloves of garlic. I have cooked and drained my chickpeas. These were cooked in salt, so those are kind of salty. And this is 250 grams cooked. I'd say that's a cup and a half. So that's how many chickpeas we're going to use. I'm going to use something between 3 and 4 cups of chicken stock. This is homemade stock. I just cooked this down from a chicken carcass when we had a roasted chicken. So it's just pure chicken stock. I didn't add any more salt or anything to it, but it does have some seasoning because, of course, I seasoned the roast chicken. So that's, I don't know if this is the equivalent of low sodium stock or not. As you can see, it's going to be a little cloudy because that's what happens when you cook down chicken bones. I'm going to use crushed tomatoes to give it a little flavor, and we're going to caramelize these a little bit. This is probably going to use half that can. This is 14.5 ounces, so I'm going to use a cup. That's half that can. Along with the garlic, I'm going to add some cumin and a little red pepper. I'm going to add the paprika after I've added everything else through the chickpeas. I'm using a sweet paprika. You don't really want to saute this. You don't really want to cook it. You'd rather put this in water than in oil, because you're really going to preserve the flavor. There's no reason you want to fry paprika. In contrast, cumin and red pepper should go in with the oil, and they'll go in with the garlic. To finish, I'm going to just use baby spinach. This is somewhere between 3 and 4 cups of baby spinach, mostly stemmed, sort of the taste. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. We're getting started. I want to sweat out some more oil for this. So let me take a pause, and I'll be back when this is ready. And we're back. So we've been cooking this now for maybe 10 minutes, maybe a little less. So it's thrown off, as you can see, enough of this really quite pretty orange oil, but the flavor's just, it's very smoky and very spicy, and we're not going to emulsify this soup, so the oil would just sit on top of the soup in a not very attractive way. So that's why we're just going to get rid of the excess. Okay, so I'm putting my slightly browned chorizo bits on a paper towel, and I'm going to let them dry further on that. Meanwhile, I'm just going to pour this out. Maybe give that a quick wipe. It's not, you know, this oil isn't going to pollute anything. It's just more oil and more strongly flavored oil than we like. So give that a quick wipe out. Now instead I'm going to cook the leeks and garlics, the vegetables. I'm going to cook them in just a little bit of olive oil. So that's like a tablespoon, maybe a little more. Probably should be a little more, but now with our leeks in, we do not want to brown these. You know, we're still on relatively low heat. But we can cook these down until they're soft. So I will see you in a few minutes when these will be soft. And we're back. That's about 7 or 8 minutes. I've been tossing them occasionally. The point you really want to do is you want these to soften and you want them to separate and you don't want them to brown. So low heat. Patience is a virtue. So to that I'm now going to add my garlic, help that soften a little bit. And cook some. I'm going to add some ground cumin, I certainly want less than a teaspoon. I'm going to say half a teaspoon. Call that half a teaspoon. Get some good cumin flavor. I'm going to add some chili flakes. Now, depending on how spicy your chorizo is, and whether you want to, whether you want to bump it up, bump it down, spice your chicken stock, it's really up to your taste. I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of red pepper flake. Oh, the other thing is whether your paprika is spiced. I'm using just sweet style paprika from our friends at Penzeys, so there's very little heat in that. So I'm just going to spice up a little bit with some red pepper flake, and now is the time to do that, along with the garlic and the cumin. This all gets real fragrant, so has the advantage of smelling really nice as you're mixing that all together. Okay, the last thing we want to add to our vegetables is crushed tomatoes, and I said we wanted about a cup, even though can't get crushed tomatoes in a 1 cup can. That's all right. I'm going to open the can. I'm going to try to use about half and save the other half for pizza sauce, because crushed tomatoes are real good for pizza sauce. So we're going to call that half. Now I want to add the tomatoes at this point because I'm going to stir them in, and they will caramelize a little bit. So you'll get sort of that sweet but richer flavor of tomato if you cook it a little bit on what is still pretty moderate heat. I guess I could bump up the heat a little bit at this point and save you time. But you can smell, of course, the difference as the tomato starts to cook. Some of those sugars brown a little bit in the tomato. But that's only going to take a minute or two. I guess it's also going to help the garlic and the pepper we put in there blend together. I don't know. It's hard when you're making a soup to get that serious about how you're going to blend the flavors at this stage, because we're about to put a boatload of chicken stock in it, and that's going to blend the flavors when we cook that. All right, that's good. Of course, that assumes I can get this open, which is not always a given when you're making there it is. All right, so I'm just going to pour that right in. I am going to turn up because we got to get this up to boiling in order to put in the rest of our goodies. Also, when this gets hot, we can taste it to see how salty it is. I guess I'm going to put the chickpeas and the paprika in before I do that. So let's do that. Again, this is maybe a cup and a half, and cooked in salt water and drained. Now for paprika, I'm gonna add a teaspoon, because I think that's about right. Okay, that's starting to look like the soup. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up to the boil and simmer it for about 20 minutes. Then I'm going to taste it and see if I need more salt, more water, more paprika, whatever. So, in the time it takes to get this up to a simmer, and to simmer for 20 minutes, I will see you then. It's 20 minutes and we're back. It's simmering. That's what I get for a simmer on my stove. Unless I get fancy, that's as low as it can go. But that's a good simmer. So it's been just simmering for 20 minutes. Allow the flavors to blend a little bit. Those leeks and maybe the remaining garlic soften a little bit. It's certainly ready. So now we put back in our chorizo. Now I'm going to taste it because I don't really know what the salt level is going to be like. I know I did the spice more or less right. If you look, that's what our consistency is. It's not, the vegetables are not cooked to the point where they're not vegetables anymore. I think that's a very pretty soup. Let's see how it tastes. That was great. That really needs nothing. It really needs nothing. That worked out well. If I wanted to add some You know, if I needed to, I would add salt, but I don't need to. Last thing before serving, we're gonna add our spinach. Maybe we'll turn this up. Enough. We're just gonna wilt the spinach here. The point is really it's not to cook it, it's just to wilt it. The spinach just complements the paprika and chorizo flavor. With the chorizo I used, you can immediately the smoky flavor gets into the soup. You just don't want it to be too much. I find the smoky flavor can be overpowering, at least from the chorizo I use, which is why I try to drain so much fat out of it. There we go. That really is enough to wilt the spinach. Now, now we can serve it properly. So as you see, it's a pretty thick soup. There's not, you could add more liquid, but I think that's about right. Now it really is done. All right, there we go. We have our chickpea and chorizo with leeks, garlic, tomato, some cumin, some red pepper flake, some paprika, and spinach. As you can see, the chickpeas, look, that one's kind of split, but no, it's just done. That's done just right. That's delicious. All right. Good eating, my friend, and enjoy.